Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to my Super Surprise Mystery Thursday AMA. This is Dr. David Snyder checking in with you. How's everybody doing? Type in your name, where you're checking in from. And it's your Ask Me Anything time. Talk to me. What do you want to know about? What do you want to learn about? What questions can I answer for you? I will have a special request at the end of this particular meetup, though. It's that time of year again when globalgurus.org is setting up elections and voting for their top NLP gurus of the year. I would absolutely appreciate you guys going to globalgurus.org and voting for yours truly to kind of keep the momentum going. Let's see if we can take that #1 slot this year. So hello to Liam, and there's Ivy Red Bean Bunny, ASMR. Hi. And Onel Shleman, have you been? I've been good, been busy, just got finished with Secrets of Internal Power. The one time a year when I dust off my martial arts chops and show people stuff. Okay. So I'm just going to go ahead and try my new little fancy stool here and see how that works out. All right. Liam says, we got you, Dr. D. Thank you, my friend. Laura Thompson's up. What are your thoughts on Graves? I don't know what Graves' values are, Laura. I lead a little bit of a secluded hermit style life when I'm not dancing around with a vest on or doing webinars. So if you could educate me, Susan, hola back. Talk to me what's going on, Let's see here. I can jump this in a little bit, see if I can find the optimal settings for folks. There we go. So what do you got? Talk to me, guys. NLP Mind Hacks, Dr. Dave, good to see you. Good to see you back, my friend. Good to see you back. Really? Tad James NLP uses them. It's been a long time since I studied any of Tad's stuff, so remind me. Patty Pacifico, hi, Dr. David. One time you said a high number of those overweight had sexual abuse in childhood. I don't repeat anything in error. Can you detail that, please? Sexual abuse seems to be, or inappropriate physical attention seems to be a big cause of weight gain in a lot of people. And the thought process from the subconscious mind seems to be that the reason I'm getting all of this unappreciated or unwanted attention, whether it be just comments or physical advances or harassment or whatever, seems to be, I'm getting all this attention because people think I'm attractive. So if I'm not attractive, then people won't do this to me. And so the unconscious mind flips a switch, and before you know it, you pack it on. Now, let's be honest. There are other things that can cause obesity. The need for security, in terms of like food being substituted for affection, is a big one. I've had people that I've worked with that when their sibling was born, they saw their mother breastfeeding their sibling and had massive separation and anxiety issues and would fight to get back on the breast. And that's where that whole food is love kind of a process comes in. But in any case, the way it was explained to me by one of my mentors, Jerry Kine, was that anytime you see someone more than 20 pounds overweight, it's almost always emotional body armor. So the thing I've seen over and over and over again when I've gotten people in the chair, and it doesn't seem to really matter in most cases what the physical ailment is, there's almost always an emotional driver at its roots somewhere. And so that's why I now look at disease and pathological manifestations of things more as bad manifestation and communication than I do as an actual disease. Disease to me has taken on a different meaning over the years, and that particular approach seems to have actually empowered our ability to heal things faster and better. There's this thing I've known about it as a hypnotist. I've known about it for years. In the Chinese Qigong fields, there's this thing known as clinical hexing, where the belief systems surrounding a particular illness or the way things are explained by a physician, someone who's in high authority in the subject or the patient's mind, can literally program people to respond negatively in situations that could be rectified in others through other means. Like, for example, one of the first things that most people do is if they get a diagnosis of cancer, one of the first things they do is they go to Wikipedia or they go to PubMed or they go to, they start doing all this research and filling their head with all of this cancer information. And on one level, that seems to be like the smart thing to do, to educate yourself. But on a subconscious programming level, what you're actually doing on a spiritual, energetic, and subconscious matrix level is you're actually adding more power to that program. You're actually causing that disease to be harder to now again, there's exceptions to every rule, but in many cases, especially if you're in a highly stressed situation where you're on the brink, especially when you first hear that C word diagnosis, for example, man, you just go into fight or flight. And so you just start wanting to accumulate because you're looking for an answer. But what in actuality, what's actually happening many times is you're actually adding more weight to that term, that diagnosis you've been given. So sometimes a lot of the healing is just getting those bad programs out of there, and then finding the emotional experience, venting the emotion, and finding alternative ways to satisfy it. So again, if people are, again, not to say that there aren't people who need to do that and things like that, but there's just a lot. The mind and the emotions play such a huge role in the direction and the prognosis for a particular manifestation. And that's what I consider them to be, is just negative manifestations. Ivy Red Bean Bunny ASMR says, can we spin for others who refuse or are fearful to spin for themselves? I get that question a lot. And I think a lot of that is because when EFT came out a few years after EFT was evolved, the idea came that we could do surrogate tapping for other people. And the honest answer is, folks, I don't know. I don't know that you can't. I think a lot of it depends on the relationship that you have with that person and how much they really actually want to get rid of the problem. If that makes sense, right? You can always do remote healing and remote influence, but again, if you don't have if they're not on board with it, or you don't have permission to do those healings, you may have a lot more obstacles to overcome. So test it and see. The worst thing that can happen is nothing. Cobra Viper 11, I have a question on imagination. I've noticed that imagination is the only skill that doesn't carry much from childhood to adulthood. How important is imagination? Is critical. And it's not that imagination doesn't carry, it's that society teaches you and trains you to use your imagination differently. It trains you to start. Here's a basic example. When you were a kid and they handed you a crayon and a coloring book, your crayon was all over the page, right? As you were taught to draw, you were taught to color inside the lines, right? Part of our educational process is to hone and guide the imagination to stay within certain parameters. We would call it thinking inside of the box or thinking inside lines. So one of the most powerful things that we can begin to do is become more creative, use our imagination for more and more things, and develop it that way, right? There are principles that govern the mind, but the imagination is absolutely critical. If there's one thing, we have a saying in the hypnosis world that when the willpower and the imagination are in conflict, imagination wins, right? So if anything, it's not that the imagination doesn't carry over, it's that when you're first born, your imagination's like this. As you go through the educational process, it starts to do this. So your imagination may be very strong on a very narrow spectrum, whereas children, they're all over the place. They can imagine the moon made of green cheese and what that might taste like, right? And it's just as real to them as Spider-Man and the Tooth Fairy and your mom and your dad. There's almost no distinction imaginatively, right? It's as we get older that those things, those limiters start to be reinforced. Now, we do need to train the imagination, but let's be very clear that it doesn't really go away, right? It can be atrophied because of lack of use, right? Or the belief that the imagination is actually the problem, not the solution. Let's see here. Jesus or Jesse Sweet says, thank you for your work, Dr. D. You're welcome, Jesse. Alessandro, hey, David, I'm doing applications for my psychotherapy degree. Any general advice for acing applications? Programs are pretty competitive. You know what I would do if I had my druthers? I would find everybody who I could find that successfully applied and got in, find out exactly how they answered their applications and model that as a template, right? The other thing you can do, again, this involves a lot more social engineering than most people are willing to do. Get to know who's going to be reviewing your applications, find out what their values are, and fill out your application in response to who's most likely to be filling out or reviewing the application. That would be, some of the things I would do. They were used for Dianetics and Scientology, but they are not what I would know. Honestly, in all the years I've been studying NLP, I've never heard Graves values mentioned. So it's either something very esoteric or something that not a lot of people are using, or Tad picked it up somewhere else. If you're saying it came from, or it's used in Dianetics, he may have picked it up from there. Let's see here. Susan, reinforcing the trauma of the diagnosis. Yes, very much. Whiskey Sal. Hi, David. I saw an interview with Chase Hughes where it was mentioned that he doesn't like the terms frame or framing. Do you have any idea why that might be? And is there merit in his point of view? Well, without a given context, I can't really elaborate on what Chase might have been talking about. Certainly he has in spite of our friendship, he does have somewhat of a very dim view of some of the things taught in NLP. There's probably another word he uses in place of frames or framing that we're probably talking about the same thing. He just doesn't like that particular word. So it's probably, again, I'm extrapolating based on the limited information I have, that he's talking about identities and social masks as opposed to context frames or meaning frames, and who's the subordinate, who's dominant, things of that nature. Usually when Chase talks, there's merit to it. But sometimes the perspective between what he says and I say, we're arriving at the same conclusion, but just coming at it through different channels. So without any more information, I can't really elaborate more on what Chase might be talking about. Patty says, agree the body follows the mind, and the body is an incredible machine, but the mind is the king or queen. Yes. Yes. John Godoy, my question, what have you been studying for marketing and Google ads in general? A lot of I've been using a lot of John Benson's stuff right now in terms of marketing. Probably the best guy out there for Google ads is Perry Marshall. He's been around for a long time, and just, he's always on the side of the angels with the wonderful world of Google. So his stuff, again, I've been doing internet marketing now almost over 20 some years. And Perry Marshall seems to be the go-to guy, at least as a place to start. So creative journey. I'm an introvert and have a friend staying with me who is super extroverted, a bit clingy. I feel like she is seeking reassurance, validation, attention from me, and I feel drained. Okay. How do I clear my space and set boundaries so my energy stays with me? Well, you just answered your own question. What you've done is not set boundaries. If you're like most introverts, you tend to try to do things subtly and by innuendo and inference rather than by just blatantly saying it out loud. A lot of times when people are a little bit on the Asperger-y side, a little bit clingy, a little bit more on the extroverted side, you can't be subtle with them. You have to be very explicit and say, look, I know you don't mean well, but I don't have the energy for this, or this is as far as I'm willing to go. These are my rules. Please follow them. Right. And they may act taken aback. They may act shocked. They may act a little offended or hurt. Too bad. Because at the end of the day, if you're not willing to stand up for your boundaries, then you deserve to have people overrunning them. And I'm not trying to be mean or anything like that. But one of the things that you need to understand is, as introverts especially, You need to know when to be very, very blatant and very, very direct. And introverts, as a rule, don't like that. They don't like confrontation. They don't want to hurt people's feelings. They don't want to invest in the interaction unless it's something that they're really fascinated by or passionate about. But when you've got people who are just going to keep coming for more, they don't do subtle. And so you've got to be very clear in your lines in the sand, and you've got to call them on it when they cross it. Okay. Onel Schleman says, I'm from California, USA, but currently live in the UK working on playing for a decent soccer club. But for some reason, my confidence isn't always there. It comes and goes. What do you recommend I should do? Okay. Go inside and clean up the reasons why the confidence goes away or why you're being fearful and afraid, right? You're playing movies in your head that are leading you to feel less than confident, which means you're probably focusing on the wrong things rather than focusing on having a good time. And when you've played your best, you're focusing on and running movies in your head about when you haven't done well, or your little voice in your head is telling you, well, what if you screw up, or what if they don't like you? What if you fail? Tell it to shut the fuck up. Right? Use the transformational triad, color breathing, magic frame, and energy spinning, and dissolve those negative feelings out of your body. Make the movies of your successes bigger, brighter, wrap them around you, breathe the colors and the feelings connected to those things through your body, and stand like a winner. And within a very short time, you'll start acting like a winner. Okay. Alessandro says, thanks, David. John Godoy says, I'm now working with sales and using your tips from years ago every single day. Any updates on your sales? I'm assuming that's supposed to be juju. Honestly, our sales system has stood the test of time. We haven't found anything else that closes people faster and better and makes them feel good about it. So at this moment, no, there's nothing that's breaking records that we're not already doing, or that we haven't taught as of yet. So Oni Manin says, do you have something to recommend how I should work with deep-rooted fear that has always been in me but got much worse after an accident? Love your work, by the way. Yeah, start with a transformational triad: color breathing, magic frame, energy spinning. And if you can point to where you feel it, you can change it. Okay. That's pretty much the long and short of it. There's lots of videos here on the YouTube channel that will show you how to do each of those, and we're always doing more. So by all means, check those videos out. What I'd like to do, if you guys don't mind, I want to post a link for you guys. I just got an email from globalgurus.org the other day saying that they just opened voting for Global Guru of 2023, 2024. So if it's okay with you and you don't mind, I'd like if you guys could just run over to this website, find the voting page, and cast your vote for good old Dr. David for best global NLP guru of the 2024. I would sure appreciate that. Also, like and share this video, so the more people that vote, maybe we can take #1 this year and really do some cool stuff. Right? Let's see here. I'm now working with sales and using your tips from years. Okay. Entron says, I image cycle almost daily. What else am I missing in manifesting? I hear that I don't have to work harder in order to manifest, but I should still pursue or do something. You need to work on yourself, Entron. And what I mean by that is you can't just sit around and just image cycle and expect something to happen. That's something you have to earn. And the way you earn that is by taking physical actions in the real world that cause you to improve yourself so that you can create better results. Now, I don't know what you're trying to do. I don't know what things you're trying to manifest, and it's really none of my business. But at the end of the day, there's probably some education and some, and when I mean education, I mean actual skills training, not just manifestation training, as well as some shoe leather work that's involved there. That would be the two big things that, from having met you and knowing your enthusiasm and everything else, those would be the two things that I would recommend you focus on, right? What is it you want, and how do you become that person, right? And how much shoe leather and elbow grease is it going to take to get there, right? And the other thing is, again, stick with things. One of the problems that a lot of people have is I'll tell a story, and then those of you who need to hear this can understand it. Once upon a time, there were two farmers, and they decided to have a little contest to see who could grow more crops faster. And so they both took a few, they both took their seeds and they planted. They actually, I think they were, we'll just change it. They're doing one plant each. So each of the farmers went out and they both planted their seeds. And every day farmer A would come out and he would water the seed. Right. And farmer B would come out and he would dig up the seed, look at it, say, why haven't you grown yet? And then he'd bury the seed and water it and walk back in the house. And then the next day, farmer A would come out and he'd say, it's okay, you'll grow. And he'd be talking nice to the plant and he'd just be watering the plant. And the other guy would come out and he would dig up the plant to see if it's grown. Damn it, rebury it. Well, by the end of the growing season, there was a big old plant over here and there was still this big mound of dirt over here. What's the moral of the story, guys? Right? Sometimes you just got to keep going and trust the process rather than starting over, right? Pulling up roots and moving forward. Okay. This is something I've had to learn. Sometimes, we all want to swing for the fences and we all want home runs, to use a sports metaphor, but sometimes those games are won on base hits. It's nice to go for that 300-yard touchdown, right? Or that, 3-pointer from across the court, when more often than not, the game is won on single points and single bases and just small steps repeated over time. Now, a lot of us, we live in a time and a culture that does not do slow, right? Everybody's swinging for the fences. And there's times when that happens, but honestly, in my experience, those are the exceptions to the rule, not the rule itself. So when people are selling you, these one-stop shops, now you guys know from hanging out with me and Planet David, impatience is literally my superpower. Like, I don't waste my time on long-term, low percentage technique. I just don't. And most of you don't have that kind of patience either. But there's a middle ground there, right? There's some things you've got to put the energy into. If it's worth doing, it's worth doing long-term, right? I have clients, high-level clients that I work with who want to do what I do. And I say, you don't really want to do what I do because you're not willing to do what I was willing to do to get there. I tell people, and I make a joke, but you can go to the start date on this YouTube channel and see what I'm talking about. It literally took me 10 years to become an overnight success. And what you don't see are all the things that happened, what I had to do and where I had to go and the trainings I had to do and the things I had to do for free, the things I had to pay for to become the person that could have those things. Right. And so I have these high-level clients who come in and I can shorten the curve for them. But I can't eliminate it. And the best I can ever really do is give them a template that they can take out into the world and customize. And that's one of the things I want you guys to understand. When people start teaching you a system, you got to remember that those systems are like templates. They're generalizations that work for somebody really, really well. But you ever notice that as systems kind of move down the line, they get less and less effective for the people further down? It's because things get lost, because people don't customize, or they lose the ability to customize and find their own way. And so you have to become the person who can embody that success. And sometimes that means clearing up your shit. Sometimes it means changing your beliefs. Sometimes it means getting off your ass and knocking on doors. And I could tell stories and story after story after story about things I had to do. And I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad, but I truly believe what I'm about to tell you, that you can be or do or have anything in this world that you want, but you got to be willing to do whatever it takes to get there. And the universe will test you over and over and over again. Right. But if you're constantly leapfrogging from one thing to the next, and you never take time to grow any roots or create a foundation, well, that's running west looking for a sunrise. And it never really ends well, that I see. So hopefully the people who need to hear that, will use it in a way that's appropriate. Let's see here. John says, just voted for you, #1 NLP teacher in the world, also on an all-around amazing person. Well, thank you, John. That's really kind. Thank you so much for your vote. I really appreciate you. In fact, just let me just look real quick. I'm curious, how many people are actually on the call or on the chat today? I don't have any numbers here. So for those of you coming up November 13th, I'm doing a workshop here in San Diego called Flirting for Fun and Profit. It's one of the old meetup topics I used to teach. How many of you are in the San Diego area? By a show of hands, anybody? Or by a show, in the chat? Gorilla Boss says, just voted for you. Thanks for everything. You're welcome, Gorilla. Let's see here. Lottie says, I have boundary. I need to love everyone. Otherwise, my love is conditional with even a partner. I only love them until they offend me. What type of unconditional love is it? First of all, all right. So Lottie, here's the thing. Almost all love is conditional. All love is conditional, right? When you get to this idea of unconditional love, you're really not talking about love as we believe it to be. It's more of an acceptance and appreciation of who somebody is and letting them be themselves rather than setting standards and expectations of who they should be in your world, right? But, this whole idea of conditional love gets a really bad rap. And I don't think that's fair. I think there's a reason God invented unconditional love and then all these other iterations of love, because it goes back to our values and who we want to be and what we will accept in our world, right? So I think unconditional love is a great thing to aspire to, but I think it's unfair to ourselves to beat ourselves up when we do have a biased thought or we do set an expectation or a value or a condition for the people that we want to be in our lives, right? Because face it, if romantic love wouldn't exist at all without conditions. So, I think one of the hardest parts as a human in today's society, and it's probably not any different than it was 30, 40 years ago, it's just more public, is this idea of all these expectations of who we should be are coming to us through different channels and things like that. And at the end of the day, we have to be discerning enough to decide where's our balance, right? And stop beating ourselves up, because we're in a society that in its weird overt way of trying to champion everyone is actually putting everyone down. Because the minute you calibrate any kind of distinction, any kind of difference, any kind of preference, all of a sudden you're biased, you're racist. And they've taken things and they've blown them out of proportion in many cases. Now, I'm not saying injustices and things like that don't exist. God knows they do. But when we go to these extremes, everybody suffers, right? And so we have to be kind to ourselves. When I talk about luck traits and I talk about the 5 or 6 characteristics that lucky people have, that unlucky people and people who work hard, way harder than they have than lucky people do in general, is they're kind to themselves. They're not beating themselves up all the time, right? They're always finding ways to make lemonade out of lemons or whatever. And so kind of maybe I went off on a tangent there, but I hope it's kind of useful. See here. So I don't know if I answered your question, Lottie, but I hope I gave you some maybe a different perspective on the whole love versus unconditional love conundrum. Red Ice, hi, Dr. David. I do business development and sales for dealerships. I've been using your methods for clearing my own energy field. What suggestions would you give to help me be more persuasive and grow? Okay, start with this. Echo technique, criteria and values, emotional bonding checklist, resistance removal formula, 14 renegade reframe patterns. Best place to pick up all of that in the shortest amount of time possible would be on one of our webinar packages, or going to our website and getting the Killer Influence Secrets of Covert Hypnosis training combined with CPI-3 Renegade Reframing, the Art of Conversational Belief Change and Overcoming Objections. That was going to give you the biggest, most powerful bang for your buck. You can supplement that with a course called Stealth Selling Secrets, which we have available on the NLP Power website. So I highly recommend going there. Okay. Lottie says, David, you are 5 stars. Yay! Let's see here. Ilka DeBoer says, when I go out to a club or bar, I feel like there's not a lot of positive eye contact to then approach people off of. Is there something that helps to help with this? Okay. First of all, are you giving off approachable, pleasant, high energy body language? Are you coming across with a playful rock star energy that people feel drawn to? A lot of times when you're not perceiving positive interactions or positive cues from other people, check in with your own state, because many times you think you're in a great mood, but somehow, some way, resting bitch face crept in. I've known that many times. Pardon, my nose is itching a little bit. Many times people think they're acting cool, like they're putting off this cool, hip alpha vibe or something like that. And what they're really giving off is intimidation and almost an aggressive kind of an energy that people don't find even remotely enticing. So embracing a fun, playful vibe, having body language that actually radiates and signals those things, as well as the whole positive eye contact process and making eye contact and initiating it will help you a lot. Sometimes a lot of people are, especially post-COVID, where everybody's like a little bit more on the social anxious place. They're not used to being around people. They're not sure how to act. They're actually looking for somebody else to take the lead. And this is a big one that took me years to really accept. There's a lot of times, if you want to be seen as someone who's social and adept, you can't wait for people to come to you. You've got to actually inject some energy into that interaction. You've got to embody the traits that you want to inspire in other people. And so practicing being playful and practicing just going up and talking to people in fluffy conversations and things like that break that ice, and just doing that over and over and over again will go a long way in upping your social value, breaking through those barriers that we've erected because of all these screens that we have to interact with on a day-to-day basis. 3 Magic Questions protocol is really probably the best single technique for breaking the ice and just getting people out of their shells and interactive. So those are the things that I would recommend. Check in with your own state. Make sure that your positive eye contact is good. Make sure your eyebrow flashing. Make sure you're giving people genuine, relaxed smiles, right? And waiting for them to initiate or to reciprocate the cues. Let's see here. Nihar says, when communicating with the echo method, do you echo all their words back or just their key words? The answer is yes. You can do all of that. You can do strings of verbatim languaging with a question on the end or a preface, or you could just do, once you get really good at echo technique and your neurology now has the ability to parse language on a deeper level, you can zero in on the exact words that they emotionally, either tonally or volumetrically lean on, and just use those words. When you come to Killer Influence, we're going to show you different ways to use the echo technique. But the first way we do it, we call it verbatim training. And the reason for that is because if you learn to memorize long strings of dialogue and use it verbatim, it changes your brain. It changes your capacity to hold on to information and analyze it and regurgitate it at a much deeper level. So when you go on to things like advanced NLP training, or the way we train NLP training, and you're going to learn about strategies and social submodalities and eye accessing cues and replacing languages, which is what classical NLP wants you to do, it becomes much easier to do that because you can actually remember what a person said. But the truth is, echo technique replaces all those other things anyway, so you don't actually need that. But for people who want to get that granular on their training, it's laying the foundation for it to become easier to apply. So start with the echo technique. As you get better and better at the echo technique, start to begin, you can change the inflection, you can change the accent, you can change just the few words that they emotionally lean on. You can start with the first few things they said and then follow up with your own content, or you can follow up with your own content and end with the last few things they said. They're all gonna register as sameness at a neurological level, and will cause the person to bond and self-disclose. But for beginners, I always recommend verbatim echoing and going from there. Okay, because I want you to develop the mind and the neuroplasticity to have an exceptional mind, or a brain, for lack of a better word. And that's how we do it. Michael M says, I get stuck when I'm trying to record YouTube videos. I get mechanical instead of just my fluid social stuff. Any ideas what might be happening? Without context, Michael, I don't know where to begin. It might be as simple as the fact that you feel like you're talking to a camera instead of a human being. So one of the things that works really, really well, and I do this all the time, believe it or not, is if I'm streaming to you on YouTube, but I'm actually streaming to you from YouTube through Zoom. And one of the things that I found helps a whole lot is having a face to talk to. So a couple of ways you can do that, right? You can draw a little smiley face either right above or right below your camera. If you're streaming through Zoom, like I am, you could literally put your picture right below the webcam and talk to yourself like you're talking to a person. Because having that eye contact many times, even if it's your own, can trigger you to be a little bit more fluid, right? Also remember that what happens when we get in front of a camera, just like when we're getting in front of when we're going to do an audio recording, when we hear ourselves or when we see ourselves, we're like, who is that guy? Right? We become there's this thing called the spotlight effect. We become very self-conscious. And so what happens when we get into that self-consciousness mode, what starts to happen is every little imperfection or deviance from how we intend to communicate gets magnified and amplified in our minds, and we think we're being really bad or doing something really badly, when the imperfections in our presentation are really, really tiny, and the only person that's really noticing them or even judging them is ourselves. And the other thing you need to understand about this kind of content is that mistakes make you human. Mistakes make you relatable. Right, back in the 70s and in those times, everybody who was on stage or in front of a camera, they had to come across as this person who was completely perfect, completely all together. That was, they had no problem. They had to come across as someone who had no problems or no insecurities in their life, and because that's what they were trying to be, something that other people would aspire to be. And I think there's I think we all still aspire to be kind of that way, to have all of our shit together. But the more perfect a person seems, the harder they are to relate to. And so this is why when I go to things like Instagram or things like that, and I see all the influencers, all the wannabe influencers and everybody, and they're portraying an image, but you don't really know what they do when the camera's off. Right? You're creating narratives. And we do that to ourselves all the time. We look at what's in front of us, and we build narratives in our mind, and we assign meanings to those narratives and those stories, and we act as if they're true, when in fact most of the time they're just shit we made up. And that particular nugget gets really, really deep as you get deeper into the secret stuff we teach in Planet David. But hopefully that helps you. Kathleen M says, hey, David. Hi, Kathleen. Antron says, thanks, my friend. Lottie says, isn't love a boundless bond? I don't understand. Lottie Martin says, cool. Liam says, let's see here. Let's see. Sometimes this thing just jumps. Michael says, what's the webinar series? Michael, I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to. If you could remind me a little bit. Lottie says, yes, blessed natural healing, energetically spreading healing. Yes to healing. Okay. Chainsaw says 59 watching on YouTube. Happy to be here. Thank you, Chainsaw. You're awesome. It's hard not to love. Okay. I don't think it's about not loving. I think it's about loving yourself enough to understand why your boundaries are your boundaries and why they need to be maintained. You know, I think we live in a world where it's very easy for people to misconstrue things, very easy for people to just take and take and take and not realize that they're taking and taking and taking. And when things are nice and explicit, when the lines are cleanly drawn on the highway, you know when you're in your lane and when you're not. And I think more often than not, our desire for connection causes us to not create those very clear boundaries. And that's when things get muddy. Mindhack says, I'm in San Diego. Cool. Let's see here. Bleda says, I wish I was in San Diego. I wish you were too. When it says me. Okay. Lottie says, dear goodness, this computing is hard. I want to vote for you, David, sir. Okay, we'll go to http://www.globalgurus.org. I think it's / actually, I think I might have cut and pasted this already, so I'll just do that. All right. Susan says voted. Liam says, Laura says, looks like it's 65. Excellent. Roderick says, I don't know, feel your body. Yes. Lottie says, all success is like a big. Okay. Some of these words are not coming across, Marty. You might want to go back and retype. I can fill in some of the gaps, but Cobra says, already voted for you on Global Gurus. Thank you, my friend. Let's see here. Susan says, voted. Liam says, do you have any beginner-friendly Qigong exercises to improve health? I have tons of Qigong exercises, guys. Remember, I'm doing a doctorate. I'm doing a doctorate in medical Qigong, and all I've got are Qigong prescriptions out the wazoo. So to ask that question is like going into a pharmacy and say, hey, you got drugs here? So yes, I have lots of them. But Qigongs are like prescriptions, right? What's the situation that you have? That determines what Qigong prescriptions we give you. Okay. Let's see. So Kolami says, hey, David, Steve from Sunday here. Great SIP class over the weekend. Almost not sore anymore. Okay. Welcome, Steve. Glad to see you again. Hopefully we didn't hurt you too much, right? Steve. Okay. Woodworking aspirations, almost 3 a.m. here in Kenya, enjoying the AMA. Hello, Kenya. God bless, my friend. Actually, I shouldn't do that because I think that means something different in South America or South Africa. I think I was told that once, so maybe I don't want to do that. So we'll do this one. I think this is pretty universal. Hello to Kenya. All right. Colmy says, been watching your wife punch you on repeat. Good times. So for those of you who don't know what Cole's talking about, I just finished a 4-day Secrets of Internal Power martial arts training where I kind of break out some of my secrets. It's one of the few times a year when I actually show people the martial side. And one of my guest teachers was actually my wife, Dawn. And since nobody was there, only one other person there was really trained to take strikes. And I taught Dawn how to hit. I was her punching bag for a few demos. So after all the punching I was doing and the weird things I was doing to my seminar attendees, I think it was a little bit therapeutic for them to see me getting beat on. So Jesus Castaneda says, I know you're super busy and expensive. What's the next best thing to work one-on-one with someone you trust? Call our office, 858-282-4663. Speak to Moss Lightman. He's my current administrative demigod. He's also one of my proteges. And so he is taking on a lot of my client work. He'll set up an appointment with you. After you pass the screening, he'll discuss strategies and tactics for getting your situation resolved in the shortest amount of time possible. If Moss can help you, he'll tell you. If he can't help you, he'll tell you that too. And there's about a 50-50 chance that if he decides that he can't help you, there's a chance he might actually refer you to me. And there's a teeny tiny chance you might actually get to work with me. But I trust Moss completely. I also trust my people, Bernie Dietrich and Heather Endress and Holly Bigelow are some of the people that I trust a lot. We have a lot of people in Planet David who are very, very well trained and very, very competent at this stuff. So if you need help, we're here for you. Even if you're not working with me directly, you are going to be working with someone that I spent a lot of time and energy to train. So once again, if you want to get session work done, it's 858. Hold on a second. Let me put this in the corner. 858. Nope. 858. There we go. 282. Oops. 282 4663. Speak to Moss, and depending on what you discuss with him, he'll make recommendations as to which of my associates would be the best fit for you. So music 67702. Hey Tiona, thank you for your donation. So grateful for that. If there's a question, please let me know. Tiona says she voted. Thank you, Tiona. Worldwide foot. Woohoo! So music 67702 says, hey, David, loving this. What would you recommend we do to change our perceptual filters in real time, to change from environment to environment, e.g. a meeting and then walking, posture and breathing? That's going to be the fastest, most economical way to do it. Once you have posture and breathing changed, from there, I would start playing different movies in your head. That's really the fastest way to do it. Okay. If you have the state control drills from Killer Influence, those will change things really, really fast. But that builds on the foundational state control drills that we teach you in CPI. So posture and breathing are going to be the two biggest ones. Okay. Albatross says, sock it to him, Don, pal. If you guys want, maybe I'll clip that I'll take that clip out and I'll put a little montage video of the martial arts training together for you guys. I'm so laid back when I do martial arts now. I still wear these shirts. Like I don't even wear belts and uniforms anymore, right? Because you don't get attacked when you're in your uniform, unless you're advertising, right? Phil Cochran, hey David, big love from Scotland. Love your stuff on YouTube. Love you back, Philip. Glad you're with us. Lords never die. How do I control my rapid heartbeat in tense situations? Posture and breathing. Posture and breathing. Okay. One of the big hallmarks of high level performers is their ability to go from stress to relax in seconds. So that's always worth cultivating. The fastest way to do that, control your posture, control your breathing, get emotional distance, physical and emotional distance, generate a safe color. If you don't have one, go watch some of my safe place inductions here on YouTube and install that safe color and that safe energy. Change your posture, change your breathing, breathe that through you using the color breathing method, and your states will change very, very quickly. Albatross says, I lost weight by only eating once a day, similar to intermittent fasting. Good luck. Okay. Missed that, but okay. Lords never die. Sometimes it almost feels like panic. Okay. So a couple other things you can try is look at your ears. Do you have little wrinkles in front of your ears here? I taught this in my face reading webinar the other day, that sometimes if people have markings here, this is what we call auditory intuition. And because of where those markings manifest, it's over what we call the triple warmer meridian. And the triple warmer meridian one of the things it governs is water metabolism. So people with these kind of markings find themselves often dehydrated, and to compensate for that, they often drink a lot. But the problem is that the more they drink, the more they urinate, and the more they urinate out all the electrolytes and the minerals in their system. And when those minerals are out of balance, then you can get rapid heartbeats, tachycardia, irregular rhythms, things of that nature. And oftentimes people think that they're having a panic attack or an anxiety attack, when in reality, it's an electrolyte deficiency. So I found that by supplementing with electrolytes and magnesium, sometimes potassium, that 99% of my random tachycardia and heartbeats and stuff that I would suffer from went away. So I'm big on electrolytes and minerals. So I would start with the posture, the breathing, safe place, and then check in with your doctor and see if it's safe for you to follow the recommendation, and then start supplementing with magnesium and electrolytes and see if that makes a difference in your stress level and the heart and the rapid heartbeat. Oh my God, David, have you tried Hubermans Physiological Sigh? I do not know if I've tried it or not because I've never heard anything referred by that name to me. If I saw it, I might be able to put a different name to it, or I might say, oh, that's pretty cool. So I can honestly say at this point, I don't know because I've never heard that term before. Okay. Let's see here. The whole point says, hi from Elizabeth. I was in your HT Live class this summer, headed in to teach at the ballet studio. Oh, hey, Elizabeth. I saw you were live and has to drop in for a moment. Glad you're with us. I see you posting on Facebook and Insta from time to time. It seems like you're doing pretty well. So welcome, and I hope things are going well for you. I'll see you hopefully next year at Hypnothoughts. Lottie says, it's so fascinating by your martial arts, Dr. David superhero. Okay. I'm just a dude in snakeskin right now. So, very good information. Thanks. Okay. Music 67702. I'm a big fan from England. Don't recommend chakra cleansing every day. If so, how many times a day? Also, do you recommend shamanism? I heard Steve Pickus is big on this. Are you? Thanks again. Okay. So chakra clearing is useful. It's helpful. Some people are not as sensitive to energetics as other people. So if you're sensitive to energetics, then chakra clearing can be something that is extremely powerful and extremely beneficial. If you're not sensitive to energy, you might be better off doing something like acupuncture or acutonics, which is sound vibrations, which have a little bit more amplitude to them than some of the subtle energy things. It really comes down to, are you sensitive to energy, right? In the Chinese systems, like when there were Qigong hospitals in China, they would actually divide patients up into two categories who were energetically sensitive and patients who weren't. And the patients who were energetically sensitive got worked on by the Qigong doctors. The patients who were not energetically sensitive were worked on by the acupuncturists and the herbalists. So, and this is actually an interesting, even in China, there was this distinction between people who were super sensitive to energy and people who weren't, which is something that comes up a lot in the martial arts, especially in the martial arts that I study, which is all about attacking pressure points, either physiological pressure points, neurological pressure points, or biomechanical pressure points. Some people, you can beat on them all day on a pressure point and they'll just look at you. Other people, you blow on them and they pass out. Right. So this is one of those big divides. And so when things like chakra clearing comes up, are you energetically sensitive? Right. If you are, then chakra clearing can be a beneficial thing. If you're not, then you need to use something with a little bit more closer to this dimension. That being said, how many times a day should you do it? In my opinion, as often as necessary. One of the problems with classical approaches to energy healing, like pranic healing or Reiki, or even like DNA theta healing and the derivatives of that, reconnection healing and things of that nature, is that the effects don't last very long. Even medical Qigong, if you would go to a medical Qigong practitioner and they worked on you, you had about a 3-day window before those patterns would try to reassert themselves, unless you gave them homework to do, which would make the results a bit more long term. The problem with a lot of like things like pranic and things like that, you can go in and you can just clean out that chakra for an hour, and then 4 hours later it's blocked again, right? Because the energetics, there's a pattern established in the energy body and the spirit body of that person that keeps trying to reassert itself. And so this is one of the reasons why for many years is even, you've seen I have decades of energy healing training behind me. My go-tos were always NLP, hypnosis, and holographic memory resolution. And the reason for that is because the things that cause these energetic imbalances, the place where these patterns, these energetic patterns have their origin is in the spirit body, which is the mind, the emotion, and the imagination. And the way that you deal with the energetic manifestations permanently is you go to the spirit body level, because the spirit body controls the energy body controls the physical body. And by going right to that spirit level and creating that change and removing the generator right at that level in the most direct way possible, everything downstream dissolves in and of itself. And that's why we've had situations where tumors have literally shrunk from, on a scale of 1 to 10, or from 0 to 10, like a 7 or 8, down to 2 or 3 and gone in 90 minutes, because you're able to affect the mind, which goes to the energy, which goes to the physical body. Now, that's a very rare occurrence. It doesn't always happen that fast, but it happens enough to know that when you're attacking things on an energetic level, more often than not, you're still at the wrong place. You're still dealing with a symptom rather than a cause. You're dealing with a branch rather than a root. And so everything that we do now, and have been for decades, is about going right to the source and dealing with it there, and then watching all the other manifestations disappear. So cleansing chakras can be very good. But my question is, how long is that going to last? Right? Can you clean it enough that you cause an abreactive effect where the person has to vent and purge the actual Shen level or spirit level reason that blockage was there? Right? And if that, to me, is not, in many cases, is not the most time effective way to treat people. So we don't do it, because if you do the other stuff I just talked about, that happens automatically. So see here. Lottie says, fascinating. Orange River, LA. I hover my energy hand over my mom's foot ulcer and she gets jolts of pain. What do I do from here? I've never had energy hands cause somebody pain. When she's perceiving pain, what you're perceiving is stagnation. What's happening is the energy from your hands is going into that area and is causing things to vibrate and move. And so the stagnation in that area is getting activated. So what you want to do is you want to move the energy through and out, because the pain is just stagnant energy. What will happen is, a lot of times, as you add more energy to that system, the pain may increase. But as you keep purging, it'll reach like a little crescendo, and then it'll start to dissolve. She may also have an emotional abreactive response. She may break out in tears. She may cry. She may have memories come up. As those things start to resolve, just keep purging and regulating. Don't add energy to the system. Just move the energy through the area, and be sure to clean yourself off when you're working with that. Okay. Hopefully that helps you. Search Huberman Physiological Sigh here on YouTube. It will pop up. Super useful and quick breathing thing. I'm betting I know what it is, but I don't have to. I'll look for it later, Susan. Thank you. Stephen Wright. I'm curious what you think about MMA as a martial artist. What do you think about people using martial arts this way? Well, I have a lot of different thoughts about MMA. If you want to be really technical, I've been doing MMA all my life. Okay. MMA as a martial arts sport is a relatively new thing, but the concept of mixing different arts together or combining them in certain ways, that's as old as the arts itself. People have been doing that for centuries, right? The current accepted sport version of MMA, which is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, give or take, again, it's kind of like, 3 great tastes that taste great together, right? I think the culture around MMA can give martial artists in general a bad rep, but you got to respect people who are willing to just get in the ring and prove one way or another, does your shit work or not, but I think it also gives people the wrong idea of what martial arts truly is, right? There's always been that competitive, challenging yourself, challenging other people aspect to the martial arts. It's just implicit in the art itself. It's what it's for, right? It's for influencing people on a physical level, right? To get your outcome, so to speak. The problem a lot of times is we often look at how many people can I beat as a measure of your worth as a fighter and as a person. I think there's and when you stop fighting, does that mean you're no longer a good fighter because you're not in the ring anymore, right? And there's this little addiction that happens in many places where you got to keep fighting, you got to keep beating, and you break down your body over time and things of that nature. So I might be going off on tangents here in terms of MMA, but if you can give me a more precise question, I can kind of give you a less meandering answer. Liam says, do you have any skills or drills for dealing with traits of ADHD, such as the hyperactivity, inactivity, and oppositional defiance? Yes. Control your posture, control your breathing, and practice reframing. Remember that your physio, even though we talked earlier about the mind-body feedback loop and how the mind controls the body, for most untrained people, and this is especially true with people with ADHD and things of that nature, the physiology is actually running the psychology. So one of the things that has to happen is to channel that ADHD a little bit more through physical, make your work more physical, and you'll tap into your natural kinesthetic genius, which will allow you to be more focused. But posture and breathing are going to be two of the biggest things. And in this case, an emphasis on breath work will go a long way in regulating your mental and emotional states. Certainly hypnosis can help with ADHD, as can certain nutritional supplements, right? Things that will allow you to generate more neuroplasticity will help you with focus. Electrocranial stimulation has been really good for helping people to focus. I used to use a Halo Sport all the time to help my daughter become more focused in her schoolwork. The Halo Sports are no longer available, but there is a device called put out by Flow Neuroscience. I forget what it's called, which is used for mood disorders, but it's still cranial stimulation. They're a little pricey, but those things can help. Any kind of brainwave entrainment can help, but I would recommend, if you're going to do brainwave entrainment, things of that nature, that you actually include some kind of suggestive component, something that's going to actually not just put you in a particular brainwave state, but actually give you suggestions for focus and things of that nature. Lots of ways to deal with those the symptoms of ADHD. Okay, just really a question of how much time you want to put into it. The reframing part is oppositional defiances. If I wanted to do this for my own reasons, why might I want to do it, right? Liam says inattentiveness. Okay, I'm not sure where that comes from. Lottie says, I would love to be a healer. So be a healer. Make a choice. Ernie Ferguson, any recommendations for sleep apnea problems? I stop breathing in my sleep. A couple of things that I've seen work really, really well. There's mouth tape that can help. Weight loss is always the number one. A lot of people who have sleep apnea, a lot of times they're overweight, and the more overweight they get, the more the uvula starts to relax and the tonsils start to relax, and that tends to block sleep at night. So one of the things is by eliminating mouth breathing, you can put a big dent in a lot of your apnea, in your sleep apnea episodes. I have if you go to Amazon, there's this little chin strap that you can buy. Makes you look like the filter, the reservoir tip of a condom when you go to sleep at night, but if nobody's looking at you and if you're not going to have sex with somebody, and you're better off sleeping, so much the better. But it actually will hold your jaw closed while you sleep, and that can have some positive and beneficial effects as well. Okay, Ivy Red Bunny says, I'm very sensitive to energy, and I feel people's attention. Is good. Orange River says, thank you, perfect. Lottie says, yes, a healing event like 2 say later gets its crisis, then you feel better than I've found. Okay. Albatross, yes, unfortunately, a lot of those fake Instagrammers commit suicide. Yeah, well, I wasn't aware of that, but it wouldn't surprise me, right? Music 67702 says, fantastic response to my chakra cleanse question. Building on that, how can we address the root of the problem rather than just temporarily addressing the issue like a chakra cleanse? Magic frame, color breathing, and energy spinning are the most surgical, most directed, integrative, fastest approaches to blowing that shit out in the shortest amount of time possible. I'm always looking for better, faster ways, and I simply haven't found them. People ask me, what do you think of EFT? And my tongue-in-cheek, somewhat arrogant and competitive answer says, spinning beats tapping 10 out of 10 times. So if you can tap something way faster than we can spin it, then do that. But as far as I can see, nothing has been faster and more effective cross-contextually than energy spinning, magic frame, and color breathing. Okay. I stand on that. The way 126 experience says, have you considered the understanding that if you perceived your reality as operating from a duality, then this would then need to protect yourself? Can you restate the question? I'm not sure I'm understanding the question. Laura, with ADHD, check for trauma, and if there is, clear the trauma. I would say that is also true. Absolutely. You'll see a lot of times in people who had a lot of trauma, their brain is always spinning. It almost comes across as hyperanalysis. And they talk really, really fast because they're thinking really fast because they're always on the edge of overwhelm because they're trying to process an intense feeling, and it's going into different directions. So I would say what Laura's saying is actually true. Jeffrey Lehman, I'm having trouble establishing that connection of rapport. Do you have any metaphors that you find are helpful? I know Kenrick had, okay, so Kenrick's, the claw metaphor was a more aggressive vibrational energetic technique. We have a process we call sphere of influence, which is where you basically wrap yourself in a big warm energy ball. You open it up and wrap the person in it like a big warm hug. And you turn up the energy so that they feel connection, or you feel connection with them. And then you set it and you forget it. You can, one of my other students uses roses. He wraps rose, like force fields of roses around people. And that seems to work for him. But what you really want to think about is, what are the feelings that you want that person to have towards you? Whatever those feelings are, you've got to generate them first. So you've got to get rapport with that person first. And then once you've matched their state, you've got to lead them into the states you want them to have, right? If the vibrational frequency between you and this other person is too big, you won't get rapport, and you'll wind up deluding yourself, because most people who try to assume rapport usually don't get it. Okay, because they assume they know what rapport feels like. So developing a sensitivity to what's going on with the other person is actually the fastest way to become a master of remote rapport or nonverbal rapport. Cynthia says, do I see your question? Well, obviously I don't, or I would have answered it. So ask it again. King Titan says, hi, David. Stephen Wright. Wait, Natalie says, Juice Salvo says, physio tape on the mouth will do too. Test it. I'm not a big fan of the tape, but the chin straps work really well for me. In fact, they work so well, my wife started using them. She's a chiropractor, and she had a problem with mouth breathing and things of that nature, and she started using them as well. So I'm a real big fan of the straps. Natalie Sullivan says, can you spin just one thing? Absolutely. In fact, you should just spin one thing at a time. Okay. Stephen Wright says, do you think the language you speak affects the way you think? And if so, in what ways does it affect people? Oh, the way you speak is a direct mirror of the way you think, and vice versa. So, a lot of times people say, oh, I suck at this. I always fuck this up. Well, your brain is listening, right? You can take someone's arm and have them hold their arm out and have them say, I'm strong, I'm strong, I'm strong. And you can almost do chin-ups on their arm half the time. You have them say, I'm weak, I'm weak, I'm weak. And all of a sudden, just the weight of their own arm will start to make it dip. So your body's always listening. So yes, 100%. Language cuts both ways all the time, right? So it's really important to really monitor not just your thoughts, but the words you speak and how you speak them and who you speak them to, right? So Music 67702 says, you often speak of highly of lucky people. Would you be able to do a live hypnosis for us to be more lucky if you think it's beneficial for us all on here? Just a thought. Yes, I could do that. The question is, will I? And I might someday. I don't know when, though. Liam says, thank you for the info on ADHD, and that reframing trick of why I might want to do this will be gold. I'm so grateful. Also, side note, I'm learning cool things from the Qigong text you asked me to read. Excellent. Well done, Liam. Cigar Mera says, please tell stories about your students or people other than you who manifested impossible things with image cycling. Oh, we'd be here all day. I've had people manifest jobs, cars. I've had people literally smash their finger or smash their thumb with a hammer, and it's like split open. And one of my guys grabbed some cotton that they image cycled on, wrapped the thumb in cotton, and in like a week, it was all healed. It was like you couldn't tell almost anything had happened. It was that, the healing was that quick. So there's lots of interesting things that happen as a byproduct of image cycling. Alana Bacher says, that is genius, the roses. Yeah, wish I'd thought of it, right? Lottie says, sounds cool. The way 1, 2, 6, would you need to protect yourself if you are operating from a duality? Usually when you're operating from a duality, that's when you most need to protect yourself. If you accept you're operating from higher consciousness as one, meaning you are the universe is you, 5D. Okay, so what does that actually mean? When you're operating from 5D, how would you know? Right? Is it something you just know? Test it and find out, right? The one thing I can tell you is that the closer you get to source and the more you become an embodiment of source, the harder it is for things to attack you and affect you. But to the degree that you create difference and variability from source is the degree that you become more vulnerable to things, right? When people start talking about 6D and 8D, what the hell does that mean, right? And how do you know? And if the answer is, oh, I just know, then that's not really something that's useful, because we could all be talking about 27 different things when we say the word 5D or 6D or 12D, right? So the question becomes is, how close are you to source? How much are you embodying that source? And the way you measure closeness to source is by how rapidly you manifest change, right? That's how I measure closeness to source or closeness to truth, because the metaphor that I often tell people, if you think of everything in the multiverse is connected, it's all one, but we have these different variable frequencies. And even though they're all frequencies, the differences actually give us the different qualities and attributes. So, for example, let's think about the body. Let's say that for some mysterious reason, something is wrong with my kidney, right? And I need to get medicine into my kidney. Well, if I take medicine and I inject it into my kidney, will it go to my kidney? The correct answer would be yes, right? If I inject something into my bloodstream, will it eventually get to my kidney? The answer is yes. If I take a pill and it goes into my stomach and it's digested and passes through my liver and will it eventually get to my kidney? The answer is yes. What's the variable? The variable is time, right? The closer you are, the more connected you are to source, the more pure your technique is, the faster things manifest. That's the litmus test in my world. That's why I don't poo-poo Reiki or pranic healing or any of these energy healing modalities. They all work. The question is, how fast do they work? How permanent are the results? Because that to me is an indicator of how close to capital T truth we're getting, right? And the operator in these systems plays a huge role in that connection and the facility of that technique. So a lot of times it's really important when we're starting to talk about these spiritual things to make sure that when we throw a term out there that we're all talking characteristically or attributionally about the same thing. Because if we aren't, then it's a moot conversation, right? Cynthia says, in the Killer Influence seminar I was at, you pushed on a pressure point 3 times with no response. On the 4th time, you got a response. What's going on with that? Okay. In pressure point fighting, there's different ways that you can attack pressure points in the body. My colleagues in the pressure point world all love what they call 5-element cycle of destruction. So if I attack a metal point and then a fire point and then a wood point, fire melts metal, metal cuts wood. I'll create sparks in those meridians and the affected organ will respond and I can get a TKO or I can get the knees to kick or something like that. But around every nerve in the body is a little protective fluid sac that keeps the nerve from being directly attacked. So in a lot of classical martial arts, you'll see this 3-punch sequence. Like if I'm doing Taekwondo or I'm doing Shotokan or Wado-ryu or some of the, you'll see this, punch once, punch twice, and then a third punch. The reason for the 3 punches is because the first time you hit a nerve, that fluid sac excretes about 50% of the protective fluid around the end of that nerve. The second time you hit that nerve, another 50% or the rest of that fluid is excreted. So by the time you get the third or fourth punch, you're striking an unprotected nerve. We call that triple striking a meridian. So this is something you'll see a lot of times in like Chinese arts, like Wing Chun, where they're doing these blasts of 3, or in the Kosho Kempo, where they're using hammer fist. They're doing these, what they call continuous striking, right? And it's all about one point or a set of points that are very close to each other, and we're just going to town on it, right? And so that's a lot of times when I'm doing when I'm triple striking a point. Now, what you might have seen was I'm actually doing destructive cycle, where I got fire versus metal, metal cuts wood. And then what I'm doing is I'm holding 3 points, but they're active, but I'm not attacking them. And then I'll tap a 4th point, and then I'll get the sparks and the person's leg will kick out or something like that. So that's probably what you're referring to. The dude, I came here for the vest of the day, but snakeskin, color breathing, and energy spinning do just fine. Well, thank you, dude. Belly beans. If we have someone spin a pain feeding, or feeling, I'm assuming, do we have them slam it back in once it changes? Yes. Yeah. The original way I developed spinning was they take it out, they spin it, put it back in, let the new program engage, and the pain will go away. Every now and then you get someone, they take it out, they spin it, but they don't want to put it back. And in those cases, I just say, well, just give it to me, and I'll go and I'll have them watch me go throw it down the toilet and flush it, or throw it in a garbage can. And then I'll ask them, what do you want there instead? And I'll have them create another color and put that in its place. So very rare, but it does happen enough that we're talking about. Every now and then people are going to take something out and they don't want it back. So just take it from them and throw it away. Sagar Mera says, love from India. Love back to India. King Titan, the work is a lifelong journey, no quick answers, but definitely a boost here and there. Absolutely. Cynthia says, yuppers on the manifestations with image cycling several times. Lottie says, are different healings good for different people? Yes. Like a third of the people adapt right to our healing, but we need some of us a lot of training to be healers. I think some people come in with certain switches flipped on, but we all have in us an inherent ability to heal. It's just part of your soul connection. You have this ability to help your fellow brothers and sisters down here. Certainly there'll be certain modalities and certain forms of healing that you're going to be much more effective in a lot of times, right? And the secret behind that, and this is one thing I had to deal with for a lot of times, was getting over the envy and jealousy when somebody else is good at a type of healing that you're not. Like I go to these Qigong trainings all the time. And I'm fairly intuitive, but compared to some of these people, I'm about as sensitive as a brick. And like they can see all these clairvoyant things and do all these things. And I'm like, damn, I wish I could do that. But then I think about, well, look at what you can do, right? Everybody has gifts. Everybody has things they're good at, things they come into this body or this world with the switches flipped on, right? And I would play to your strengths first and then dabble in these other areas. And find your balance, right? If you're really drawn to something, but you're not good at it, there's probably a spiritual lesson there for you that makes pursuing it useful, right? But that doesn't mean you ignore your strengths either. You make your strengths like unstoppable and your weaknesses irrelevant, as Bruce Lee used to say. And I find that to be grateful for the gifts you have, and don't lament the gifts you don't. Just seek to develop them. Because sometimes the lack of a gift is a gift, right? It inspires us to embark on a course of study or a life direction for the sheer satisfaction of it, right? That we wouldn't have done any other way, right? You can look at every single event, every single positive or every single attribute or perceived deficiency in your mind and body in a positive light or a negative light. And the meaning you assign to it, the story you assign to it will determine the life directions you take and the behaviors that grow from it. So I encourage you to look at all the things in your life that you think of as stumbling blocks, that you think of as limitations, and think about, what positive thing could this do for me? Is this doing for me? Or what's the lesson inherent that this particular issue or manifestation might have to teach me? And a lot of times, especially if you apply like the 14 reframe patterns to a lot of these life issues, you may discover some things you didn't know that were hidden in plain sight the whole time. And you may find opportunities opening up for you that you never thought of, right? And explore them. Always be in that mindset of exploration. Like, that's interesting. What could this mean? Right? Philip says, what's the easiest, fastest state change drill you would suggest? Change your posture, change your breathing, take it out, spin it. That would be it. The way 126 says, gamma brain waves, I normally run 40 hertz, and I've gone as high as 120 hertz that I've measured. Okay. I don't know what that means, but again, we need some context here. 126. Okay. Cigar Mara says, is there any good book which is as good as Franz Barden Initiation into Hermetics for Spirituality? Again, better question, better answer. Sagara, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish? What is it? What manifestation or what phenomenon or what is the goal of reading these books? What do you want to be able to do? Right? If you can give me a better question, I can try to give you a better answer. Alana says, good, I'm glad we can flush it. I felt weird slamming COPD back into my mother. Yeah. Again, the reason that we put it back in is because anything the nervous system generates, the nervous system accepts. So if you think about it, if you take a program out that the system is effectively running and you tweak one thing, it's still 99.99% the same program. So the body is not going to reject it. It's just going to take that little change and manifest that change. So when you put it back in, the system will just run. There won't be any resistance to the program. But some people have an innate repulsion to putting schmutz back in. Right? I don't like vacuums, so I always find a way to fill that vacuum. Music 6702 says, love from England. Why does looking above eye level help get rid of dark thoughts? Honestly, I don't know. But my snarky answer would be you'd have to ask God. But for some mysterious reason, there seems to be a line, a holographic line of anything that's positive is above the horizontal plane of the eyes. Anything that tends to have a little bit more gravitas is usually accessed below the horizontal plane of the eyes. Why that is, I don't know. I think it's just something God put in the hardwire in the blueprint, and that's how we relate to the world. Okay. Cynthia says, what can I do to strengthen my psychic abilities? I know I'm extremely empathic, but to me, it's different. Practice your Qigong, learn how to open and close your third eye, clean up your crap, and your systems will come online. Sumas Research, can you recommend any excellent Qigong dojos in San Diego? Thank you for all your support and information. Honestly, no. Not because there aren't any, it's because I don't know of any. Perhaps some of the best places to research Qigong training schools or training Kuns. If you go to the Pacific College of Oriental Medicine Symposium website, there's a gentleman there who goes to the symposium every year who has a Qigong practice in San Diego, somewhere in San Diego proper. So that might be a good place to start. I've actually started a couple of Qigong meetups that I'm going to start facilitating in San Diego, but I haven't officially. I've got people in them, but I haven't done a meeting yet. So if people want to be involved in that who are local, I'll join my meetup group, Qigong. I forget what the name of the meetup is now, but I'll post that later. If people want it, you can go to my meetup groups and just find all my meetups and join all my meetups, because I usually cross post from NLP power to Qigong to energy school, things of that nature. Okay. For those of you who are just joining us, it is that time again. I need your help if you're enjoying the meetup, if you're enjoying our content on Planet David in whatever capacity that is, whether it's our free content, our members only content, our products and services. Global Gurus has opened up voting for the NLP Global NLP Teacher of the Year. And I would really like to ask your help and support in voting for me as the #1 NLP teacher for 2023, 2024. All you got to do is go to this address here in the chat and cast your vote. And any vote you give would be greatly appreciated. And we'll do more community events and things like that. Cigar says, can you recommend some good books on deity magic? There is, if you get Jerry Allen Johnson's book, Secrets of Buddhist Mysticism, I think it's Mystical Teachings, the Buddhist Mystic. There is a really good chapter in that book on deity magic. That's probably the best resource I can give you to start. There's also a couple of books out there on Chinese thunder magic. I don't remember the title, but they use a lot of the deity magic approach. So those are some good ones that you can start with. The dude, David, can you tell me to stop procrastinating? I know what to do and go back to work. Well, if you were want to go to, well, David, or the dude, if you were to want to go back to your work for your own reasons, why might you want to do that? Not my reasons, and not your boss's reasons, but for your reasons, why might you want to do that? Because if you don't want to go, I'm not going to make you go. But if you did want to go, why might you want to do that? Right? Shaduja, thanks for the extra pair of eyes to look from the outside in to add that new perspective and grown. Very good. Way126 says, will do. Is the Bluetooth connection you talk about in vibrational influence the same thing as kinesthetic rapport? Yes. And as you get more energetically aware and you start developing your 3 bodies, you can do a whole lot more with it. But for people for doing influence and persuasion, that's still like Jedi level stuff. Dujan Hale says, can you please give more examples of adverb and adjectives plus presuppositions? Well, adverb and adjectives are presuppositions, Dujan. But when you say examples, do you want just words that you can use, or do you want me to like give you sentences? What exactly are you looking for? Jacob Lee, David, can you share some Illuminescence fashion advice for men? How can I know what styles, materials, colors to choose from? I'm lost when it comes to finding a style and clothing that matches it. Jacob, the first thing you would probably want to do is reach out to Taylor Sinclair or one of her trained consultants. Illuminescence.com, I think is what it's called. It's spelled weird, so I would just Google Taylor Sinclair and follow that trail to her website. Get yourself toned. If you have the funds, pay for a shopping day where she goes out with you, or whenever people goes out with you, and they help you pick out clothes. Because one of the things I guarantee will happen, unless you're just blatantly lucky, is that a good chunk of the clothes you love to wear won't be in your tone, and so you'll wind up like being in this rock and a hard place between the clothes you like and the clothes that actually look good on you. So, but I would just Google Taylor and follow her prompts and her guidance on that. Okay. Words and sentences, please. Anything that describes anything. So simple, logical, obvious, truthful, radical. These are all words that we can use to describe things. Those are good adverb adjectives. What kind of posture, Ernie's asking, what kind of posture technique did you use back in your dating days to get more confident and attractive to the opposite sex? It was more of a, when I would stand in a very open way, right? Always a little bit asymmetrical. One of the reasons that you want to, you want to use an asymmetrical posture is because it puts you in a playful, mischievous kind of an energy. So if you're very vertical, you're going to come across as a little bit stuck up. If you're too slouched, you're going to come across as a schlub, a slobby person. But if you're a little bit asymmetrical, a little bit, diagonal, these give you kind of a mischievous, bad boy, playful, bratty kind of energy that people tend to find a little bit on the charming side. So I would find that those kinds of energies, taking up more space vertically and horizontally, makes you more dominant, and that will help you to kind of assert yourself in a more confident, playful way. Because what happens a lot of times, if you try to be playful but you're stressed, you come across as being sarcastic and demeaning. You have to really have a good, solid, playful, fun-loving, obviously teasing vibe especially when you're just starting out with this, because most people are so stressed out because they're worried about screwing things up that instead of being cocky funny, they're all cock and no fun. So the open body language, the positive eye contact, what you do with your face is really, really important. Smiling, laughing with your eyes, positive eyebrow flashes, things of that nature. These are all things that are going to really help you project an energy of someone who's just fun, right? But if you walk around looking like quasi fucking moto, then don't be surprised when people get creeped out by you, right? Or just approaching them will give them the heebie-jeebies. Music 67706, I voted for you. Thank you, Music. To build on my previous question and provide context, how does the magic frame address the root of the problem much more effectively than Reiki and chakra cleansing? Because when you're doing Reiki, you're charging the energy body, and you're relying on your guardian spirits and your higher self to go in, find the problem, and take it out. But what happens more often than not is you just get the person falls asleep, or sometimes they'll have an emotional abreaction, but they haven't processed out the real reason that it's there. It takes a long time, right? Whereas with hypnosis, NLP, I can point to where somebody feels it. I can go right to that issue. How young might you be when you first feel a feeling like that? Who were you with? Where was it? And all of a sudden, now you're unpacking a memory, a series of memories. And as you unpack and resolve the emotional energy connected to those energies, you replace that memory with something better, or give resources to that younger version and retrieve the spirit. Now, all of a sudden, the energy completely shifts, and everything that flows downstream from that, which is the energy body and the physical body, goes away, right? So that's why. Right. Whereas when you're mucking around in a chakra, maybe you'll get it, maybe you won't. Right. I don't like to waste my time. I want to be very, very strategic, very, very surgical. I want to go right to the problem, and I want to fix that problem. Right. Sometimes what you think you're getting out isn't the problem. It's what we call a subsequent sensitizing event, or it's just a little energetic pool that is being fed by a deeper spring, which has a source. And I want to go right to the source whenever possible. Joel, fastest way to learn a language when you have a beginner to intermediate grasp on it at home. Use a neurophone. Neurophones seem to be very, very popular in installing language skills directly into long-term memory. Most of the anecdotal reports I have on the neurophone seem that that's actually one of its preferred uses. They're not cheap, though. The other way that you can do it is you can speak the words that you want to learn into a recorder. Get a pillow speaker and listen to it on an endless loop as you're going to sleep at night, and the words will start to embed themselves in the subconscious, and you'll be able to you'll find yourself using them a little bit more fluidly, very, very quickly. Jacob Lee says, can you give an example of what you teach in Secret Orgasm Tips? Thanks, David. Much love from Pennsylvania. Okay. Jacob, can you give me a little bit more targeted question in terms of what it is specifically from Secret Orgasm Tips you would like me to talk about? Because there's a bunch of stuff in there. For those of you who have never heard of Secret Orgasm Tips, back in my early internet days, I created a program for couples called Secret Orgasm Tips. And it was a program, it was a system that I had developed for me, because 99% of the technologies I developed were to help me solve a problem. an ebook and a series of courses that would teach any person how to be any other person's ideal romantic partner, like within the first couple of hours of meeting them. It was very powerful, and I used it very successfully in my Darth Snyder days. And people were interested in how I was able to create these deep, intense, ever increasing levels of pleasure and connection with my partners. And so I created a course on it. And it's still selling today, even though I don't advertise it. People still manage to find it and buy it. And maybe we need to do more trainings on that. I don't know, but there's a lot of good stuff in there. But remember, I didn't develop it for you guys. I developed it for me because it was one of the first problem areas in my life that I needed to solve. So, how does one create cocky comedy with strangers? There's a book out there called Captivate by Vanessa Van Edwards. In that book is a chapter on storytelling, and there's actually a little chart in there, and it's templates, and it gives you the exact structure of funny, charming, comedic stories. That's a great place to start. I like that chart so much, I adapted it and used it as part of my storytelling training, which is CPI 2, neuroscience, the weapons of mass instruction, neuroscience of storytelling and metaphor. I liked so much I respected what she did so much that I adapted it as part of an overall lesson plan. So that would be a great place to start. There's actually a book put out quite some time ago. I think it was either by Craig Clemens or David D'Angelo. It was called Cocky Comedy. You might be able to find an old PDF of that floating around. Probably the best two sources immediately that you can go for. Beyond that, the next place I would go to is studying stand-up comedy. Stand-up comedy will teach you how to create jokes and what the mechanics of a joke are, so that you can be funny without being offensive, right? Cynthia says Global Guru is done. Thank you, Cynthia. Ivy Red Bean Bunny ASMR says, can I go back and rewatch this once this is over? Is it being recorded? The answer is yes. Yes, this will be live pretty much now. Natalie Sullivan, can you spin as you go to sleep to manifest? Yes. If you can conceive of it and describe it, you can do it. You can cause it. Liam says, dude, just picked up Unlimited Lover, covers everything, so empowering. Yes. Yes, it does, Liam. Please use it with love and respect, and respect the power that you're going to be wielding over your partners going forward. Because if and when you break up with them, I guarantee you all the people they date after that will look just like you if you follow the training. It's very powerful. Use it wisely. With great power comes great responsibility. Okay. Music 67702, David, you're a legend, David. What are the characteristics of lucky people? Are there any obvious ones that we can incorporate into our systems? All right. So I don't normally give this out all in one blob. I usually tease people with it. So the first thing is lucky people are specifically vague. So someone who's hardworking, is very planning, very industrious, who actually may go on to become very successful. They may say something like, when I get out of high school, I'm going to go to medical school. I'm going to Cedars-Sinai Medical. I'm going to be a cardiac surgeon, and I'm going to teach how to this. And see how specific everything is. I'm going to go to this school from this time to this time. Then I'm going to go to here. Then I'm going to work in this hospital, and I'm going to do this job specifically. Whereas somebody who's more specifically vague might say, rather than being a cardiac surgeon out of Cedars-Sinai Medical, I'm going to be a healer, a doctor who helps people. Right. So one of the things that they're very good at is being vague enough that they don't limit their options. You see, the problem with being hyper specific is you become very sensitized to anything in this line, but nothing out here. So lucky people are very, very aware, or are unconsciously, subconsciously drawn to opportunities and shortcuts in their environment that people who plan everything to the nth degree often don't see because they have tunnel vision. They're kind to themselves. They don't beat themselves up when shit goes wrong, right? They let it go. They're rabid extroverts. And what I mean by that is, even if they're very introverted people, they're constantly, intentionally making superficial and deep level connections. They connect with as many people consistently as possible. Okay. They are proactive. They go after things. They take action. I think I talked about them being kind to themselves. They don't beat themselves up. Trying to remember if there's any more off the top of my head. Oh, the most important one. They self-identify as being lucky. If you start talking about luck around people who are naturally lucky, within 5 to 10 minutes, they will somehow in some way self-identify as being a lucky person. They'll just say, oh yeah, I'm usually pretty lucky along those lines, and then blah, 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 and they'll just start telling stories, right? So this is a big one. There's a webinar that I posted a couple of weeks back called Secrets of Reprogramming Your Unconscious Mind. And one of the things I talked about was there are two things that you need to be successful. You need an identity that supports who you want to be, and you need to take action. Now, notice that of the 5 or 6 characteristics of lucky people, that's a third of it, right? Lucky people are lucky because of how they identify themselves and the belief systems they have, and that they take action. They're proactive. They're always going after things. Okay. I would put one more in, is that they're flexible. They're adaptable. Let's see here. Fernando says, how would you combine EFT tapping with cycling to generate more energy? I wouldn't. I don't find tapping to be excessively useful in any of the applications that I teach. Now, I know I have colleagues who swear up and down on EFT. I have colleagues who are very, very famous teachers of EFT. I have not found EFT to add any benefit to the manifestation technology that I teach, other than as another way to clear shit, to clear blocks to success. So maybe not the answer you wanted to hear, but that's kind of where I stand on it. Liam Fulham says, I will use it respectfully. Thank you for the unlock of the technologies. I'm an extremely lucky person. Things just happen for me. Boom, there it is, right? Martinez, I'm doing a mixture of imagining what I want, posture, breath, hold it, then speak an affirmation after this. This is probably the best manifesting technique for me. Is it the fractionation that makes it work? The fractionation is an amplifier. So the deeper you can go into state, the more profoundly you can impact the quantum level. So I wouldn't say it's the only thing, but it's definitely a magnifier. It's an amplifier. Sagar Mara says, please give your book reading list of spirituality. I can't. Sagar, that you're talking about almost thousands of books. There's just no way that I could actually list them all here. But if you come to one of our events, every now and then, one of my students, Seth, often has compiled a reading list over the years of every book that I've mentioned at my trainings. In fact, what you can often do, this is a little cheap hack. If you take any of the books that I've mentioned, like the Secrets of the Buddhist Mystic, Red Gold, Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff, Unlimited Selling Power by Donald Moyne, Forbidden Keys to Persuasion by William Blair. If you take those, the Franz Barden Initiation into Hermetics, if you take those titles and you go to Amazon and you type them in, when you type them in, below the book that comes up will be people who bought this book also bought this. 99 times out of 100, the books down there are on my reading list, because that's where the reading list came from people buying the books I recommended. So a really quick hack is take something I recommend all the time, like Initiation into Hermetics, type it into Amazon, look at what they recommend. Chances are a good chunk of the books on my reading list will be on it. Let's see here. The dude says, I'm not very lucky, but things usually sort themselves out. Oh, wait. Thoughts on ESP? It's cool if you can do it. Alana Bacher says, EFT is great for releasing grief. Yes. Cynthia says, EFT doesn't do much for me except a headache due to the sledgehammer I use. I would get. Liam says, lucky in love. I don't really have any type. As long as they're a good person, I'll know it when I see it. Yes. King Titan says, Alana, yes. Elena Balker says, when my father passed, Brad Yates tapping for grief and loss took me from sobbing to singing within 40 minutes. Excellent. Excellent. As long as it works for you, use it. Cigar, I just answered your question. Shakti Shaker says, man, I wish I could have a few sessions with Dr. David. Well, you can't get sessions with me unless you're willing to pay $3,000 a session. But you can work with some of my proteges and my associates. All you got to do is call 858-282-4663 and speak to Moss. Laura Thompson says, Trauma School Earth by Brent Baum. Excellent book. Recommended all the time. Liam Folan says, lucky in work. I want to try to accomplish 2 major things today, but in my downtime, sounds like you're reading from my list. Music 67702 says, should we write 10 things we want to change? For example, make a list of what I have versus what I want. Is it recommended to concentrate on 10 to amplify success, or would it overwhelm us? No, I don't think it would overwhelm you, as long as you can take the time to focus on each one individually and really anchor it in your psyche. When we teach image cycling in vibrational influence or hidden laws of attraction, we make you make a list of 21 different things, minimum, right? Because the more you have, the easier it is to not focus on any particular one. So the cycling is actually a little more bulletproof. King Titan, half the work I feel is with finding what works for each of us. Yes. Is past regression effective, and why? I've heard it's a bit strange as people go back into it. All right, are you talking about regression therapy or past life regression? Right? The short answer is yes, they're all effective. The question is, what's your outcome? What are you trying to accomplish? Okay. Shakti Shaker says, interesting. I've been doing cycling the last few weeks and business crashed, possibly some sort of block coming up. The image cycling technology is often not gentle in how it goes about things. Sometimes if you want to manifest certain things, it actually has to blow up your existing support systems so you can build back better. That's why I recommend be careful about how you expect things to manifest, because a lot of times it will take the shortest distance between 2 points, and the spirit world isn't all that concerned about your physical comfort where your growth as an entity is concerned. So a lot of times things will dissolve and break up to clear the path for something else so you can grow into it. How many times to cycle a day? As long as it's fun and until you get what you want. Okay. There's no real limit. There's no real rule on it. My only caveat is, as long as you're enjoying it. And if you find yourself feeling like you have to cycle, like it's like something bad is going to happen or something won't manifest if you don't cycle, you're now moving into what we call dogmatic thinking or ritualistic thinking, which means you need to change up the ritual. Okay. Find 7 or 8 different ways to image cycle and just alternate. But if you feel like you have to cycle, or you have to cycle in a very specific way, now you're approaching the dogmatic thinking, and you want to avoid dogma at all costs. You're moving into ritual rather than for the sake of ritual, rather than ritual for the sake of a result. So by all means, be very aware of that. Those are the only 2 rules that Bill Bankston ever really laid out in his approach to image cycling: was be playful, avoid ritual. To get a session with me, you have to pass Moss's screening. And sessions with me are not cheap. So the best thing to do is call 858-282-4663 and talk to Moss. You'll probably wind up working with Moss. Moss handles the vast majority of my referrals. He's very competent. He's a very heart-centered, very comprehensive person. So I've been very proud of the work that he's been doing with clients. Bernie Dietrich and Heather Endress, Holly Bigelow, Seth Breedbart. Those are the people off the top of my head. Nico Martins is good. Al Foy is really good. Who else? Those are the people off the top of my head that are kind of the people I'm referring to. TJ Ziebel works out of my clinic. He's based in Texas. He's really good. He was actually one of the first people I ever hired to see clients beside me at the clinic. So they're all very competent. They all have their specialty. Speak to Moss, go through the consultation process, and then he'll make recommendations as to which direction you should go. Okay. All right. Well, that being said, we're coming at the top of the hour. I sincerely hope everybody enjoyed our time together. Can I tell you about Steve P? I can. It really depends on what you want to know. In the meantime, for those of you who haven't noticed or are joining us late, one of the reasons I'm doing this is to ask for your help and support to help me get nominated for the #1 NLP trainer of 2023-2024. All you have to do to cast your vote for yours truly is go to and show your support is go to https:/globalgurus.org/NLP. Please vote vote for yours truly. Show your support for Planet David. If you've enjoyed and gotten value from our content, let's take Planet David to the top of the NLP pyramid and really make things happen out there as a community, as practitioners, whatever level you're comfortable with, right? Whether that's the client level, whether it's the product level, whether it's the free content level. I don't really care where you're coming from. Just that you actually, you come in and you learn and you actually you apply the skills that we share with you. Because if you do the work, if you do the drills, you'll get the skills and your life will change. And that's all I care about, right? I know the universe will provide in return in some way, as long as I'm doing the things that I was put here to do. So get out there, roll up your sleeves, cast your votes, and put this stuff to work. Change the world one person at a time, starting with yourself, right? Okay, so Cigar says, by taking the concept of the mind follows the body, I advise my barber to shape my hairline into a full end shape. And after doing it, my charisma has increased like crazy. Boom. Well done, Cigar. That's proactive thinking. I love that. Right. Regarding Steve, are you working together? No, I haven't seen Steve in years. I have no idea what he's doing, but he was fun to work with at the time. Liam says, thank you for all your time and information. I voted #1 for you in return. Thank you. What are the most common big blocks and limiting beliefs you recommend we work on? Hesitation, anything that makes you hesitate. So the idea that you're not good enough, that you're not smart enough, that you're not cute enough, that you're not successful enough, work on those. That the things you want aren't worth the energy and the effort to get them. One of the things that tends to come up more often than anything else is that you look at something you want and you really want it, but all these little voices are trying to keep you the same. It takes too much time. It costs too much money. It's not worth the effort. You'll be too old when you get it. You're not smart. The moment you hear those things coming up, that's your internal autonomic nervous system wanting to save you pain and effort and keep you the same. That's the biggest limiting belief that we all struggle from, is that we're not enough, or the reward isn't worth the investment. Nothing in life is wasted. Every training you've ever gone to, every lesson you've ever had, even when every bad thing that's ever happened to you, everything about it, in spite of how you got it, is a resource. It's something that you're going to be able to use in some new, inspired, enlightened way down the line. It gave you something that you're going to be able to use in the future. You may not understand exactly how you're going to use it, but it's always worth the energy, right? The fact that you deserve it, right? The fact that you're a soul in a body means you have the right to be successful, right? Because you're going to get older no matter what. Would you rather be older with the things that make you feel good about yourself? Or would you rather be older feeling like, oh, shit, I should have done that, right? Choose your regrets, right? So start there. Patty Pacifico says, Dr. David, you are the best, whether you win or not, though I do hope you win. Thank you, Patty. That's great. Ernie says, David, your techniques have had such a big influence in my life. Thanks. You're very welcome, Ernie. Susan says, hey, David, when is our next regular AMA? Susan, our next regular AMA, our Platinum AMA is tomorrow, 4 p.m. Pacific. If you're a Platinum member, you can join us on the AMA. If you're not, when would now be a good time to join the YouTube channel at the Platinum level or higher, so you can get even more cool stuff, and you can actually talk to me face-to-face rather than through a chat channel, right? Music says, legend, thanks again. King Titan says, always good to see you, David. Always good to see you too. Cigar says, is there any hairline that is specifically found in highly energetic or intuitive? Yeah, M-shaped hairline. You got the right one. All right. Cynthia says, screw being too old. I'm on it. The dude says, okay, you convinced me. I'm going to get back to work. Thanks. Cigar says, I have observed that most people that are highly spiritual, interested in energetic stuff like that, have a sinus or cough issues. Is there? Yes, because the third eye is situated right here in the sinuses. A lot of times they need to clear that out to get their third eyes to work properly. All right, you guys. Good night. God bless. You platinums and higher, we'll see you tomorrow. Same bad time, same bad channel. Go to globalgurus.org, cast your vote. Please, please, please. I need your support. Let's rock the world. Let's show the world we're the best NLP and spirit training in the planet, manifestation and attraction and all those good things. If you got a problem, we got a solution. Let's take it to the next.